Hi, I'm Lisa Niven-Kelly, and today I'm here to show you how to get your wire spirals perfect each and every time. So you can see here I've got a couple different designs, and these are the tools that you need for spiraling. 3 basic wire working tools: a good flush cutter, chain nose, and round nose. I'm going to be working with 20 gauge today, it's a nice medium gauge to practice this on. So let's get started. I'm going to show you 2 different spirals. You can see on this guy right here we've got a closed loop spiral, we're going to cover that second, and a spiral with a loop in the middle, an open loop. Let's get started with that one. That's the traditional spiral that most beginning wire work classes cover. That's where you start with your round nose pliers. So here's your round nose, round tips. Before starting though, you want to cut the edge of this wire with your flush cut. Because you're going to be holding on to the very last bit, you want to make sure that the end of your wire is cut flush so you don't just slide right off. So with your cutters, using the flush side of your cutter, cut the smallest bit off as possible. Now, where you start on your round nose will determine the size of the loop in the middle of the spiral. So this one obviously is quite big, where this one and this one is a little bit smaller. So where you start on your round nose will determine that. I'm going to start right about here. Grab the wire. You want to make sure that the wire is within the jaw of your pliers, just like making a basic loop. If it's poking up at all, even just a little bit like that, so you can feel it scratch, you'll make like a teardrop shape in the middle. And because you're basing your entire spiral around that center loop, you'll make a teardrop shaped spiral. So to ensure that it's round, hold the wire within the jaw of the pliers, feeling on top, making sure it's not scratchy. And just like, again, making a basic loop, you want to roll away from yourself. So I'm going to hold the wire here and press with my thumb as it comes around to make sure that it really takes on that shape. So just like before, roll away from you until you get about a half a turn. Maybe a couple of scoots. Now turn so you can see it this way. And I really watch it come around. When it's about halfway around, shift your hand and shift your fingers out this way so that it comes around really wide and then tucks. You can see how that's much more rounded than it was before. Once it's overlapped, you're pretty much done with your round nose. Pick up your chain nose, and you want to hold this within the jaw of your pliers. So I hold it back here towards a box joint because that's the strongest part of my tool. I don't have to squeeze as hard, and then I don't run the risk of marring the wire because I'm squeezing so hard. So back here, don't let the whole thing stick out the side, but don't hide it either. Just let the sides stick out that you're working on. See that little bit right there? And with my thumb, I scoot, shift, scoot, shift. The bigger the spiral, the harder it is to keep it uniform, but that's why you want to move slow like this. Don't try to get all the way from here all the way around to the top because you're likely going to lose it. Just do tiny little scoots. See how slowly I'm moving. Again, I don't have the whole spiral sticking out like that because it's harder to hold still and it's harder to control. And I don't have the whole thing hiding either. So little scoots. I'm running out of wire here, so how about I turn it into a charm? I'll just take my flush cut and with my round nose, make a little bit bigger loop here. Roll away from yourself, loosen your grip, bring it back. There you've got a little charm. So a couple things here. You want to now take a look at your spiral. See if there's any gouges in it. If there are lines in it, it's likely that you're either squeezing way too hard or your tool has sharp edges. So in the inside of your tool, these edges here might not be ground down well. So you might want to come in with a file and try to soften them off. Might be a combination of the two. Lighten up your grip when you hold that spiral still. You'd be surprised at how lightly you can hold it where it's still stabilizing it so you can bend around. A lot of times people starting out with a new technique will give it the death grip. Just lighten up a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to show you a closed loop spiral. Here's a head pin I made with a closed loop spiral at the bottom. So for a closed loop spiral, you want to start again with a flush cut. Just cut the smallest bit off and start the inside loop with your chain nose. So we're not making an open circle in the inside of our spiral. We're actually making a tiny little kink to bend around from there. So for this, you want to make sure you have a pretty fine-tipped chain nose. Grab the smallest bit of the wire that you can grab with the smallest part of your chain nose and roll it around as if making a basic loop, but just come around till halfway so it's like a little U or a C, depending which way you're looking at it. Now here's the tricky part. Instead of coming in with my plier, let me get closer here, and just smashing right there, that would make it long and pointed. I'm going to come like this. Do you see how now I've got this part of my tool on the tail and this in the back of the U? It's not wanting to focus right on that wire in my tool, but I think you can see it there. And by doing that, I'm going to tuck it. So again, not like this, that will just make it long and squished, but like this. And squeeze, and it'll tuck it into a tiny little kink. See that little kink? Now treat that like the loop that you did before, where you hold it within the chain nose and build your spiral around it. Now this guy you have to squeeze pretty hard to hold him still when first starting it out, so it almost looks like you hammered it. That's working out pretty good. Now if you wanted to make something like this, or actually more like this guy here, you could build a spiral on the other end and maybe treat it as a charm or a link in a necklace or bracelet. You might want to use a little thicker gauge wire if you're doing that. Here we go with the tuck. If you can't get your finger up against it, your thumb like this, like I've been doing to build the spirals, you can also just hold this and give a little tension that way. So there's just a quickie with spirals. Remember, if you're getting a lot of gouges in your spirals, you're squeezing too hard with your chain nose, or you're working with a cheap old pair of beat up chain nose. We want to use some good quality tools here. The design ideas are limitless. Have a great time.